Well, good afternoon and welcome to the principal's office. I am Principal Edward Gordon, and I'm so glad you have tuned in for this weekly broadcast where we'll be interviewing educational stakeholders who have made a significant impact for themselves, for others, and with others in education. In the book, The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, written by Dr. John C. Maxwell, he talks about the law of modeling. The law of modeling states it's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. Today, I'm grateful to have another special guest who is making a significant impact in education, Professor Jeff Willie. Good afternoon, Professor Willie.
Good afternoon, sir. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I feel honored.
Thank you very much for accepting the invite. I'm excited about this conversation this afternoon. So before we get started, I would like to start off with a brief introduction of our guests today. After 25 and a half years in the United States Air Force, serving in key leadership positions since May of 2003, Jeff is an associate professor for University of Phoenix, the Dallas-Fort Worth campus, teaching undergraduate leadership courses. While teaching at the university level, Jeff also transformed the lives of high school students teaching value-based, character-based communication courses and leadership courses all through the Air Force Junior ROTC for 15 years. Currently, Jeff is the Chief Encouraging Officer of Jeff Willie Leadership, and Executive Director of the John Maxwell Team, Executive Leadership Consulting Coach, Diversity and Inclusion Trainer and Consultant, DISC Behavior Analysis Consultant and Trainer, Conflict Resolution Trainer, Keynote and Motivational Speaker, and an Educational Consultant. Because of Jeff's why leadership, his passion is leading people to discover their why and maximize their strengths as well as those of fellow colleagues, while offering advanced strategies to go from success to significance. Because of his passion, Jeff has conducted leadership seminars throughout the United States, Tokyo, Japan, Cameroon, West Africa, and he has leadership coaching clients in Ghana, Cameroon, Tokyo, Philippines, Nigeria, Kenya, Qatar, and throughout the United States. Jeff is a contributing writer for Good Life Family Magazine and co-author of In Her Boots, Sexual Assault Prevention and Recovery Strategies. Jeff is a certified mediator, an Arkansas law enforcement instructor in Special Weapons and Tactics, which is SWAT, and an honorary colonel for the Arkansas State Police. He has 3 associate degrees from the Community College of the Air Force, bachelor's degree in corporate training and development, master's degree in organizational human resource development, graduate certificate in conflict management from Abilene Christian University, and is pursuing his doctoral degree in educational leadership. Jeff is married to his high school sweetheart for over 44 years, Pat, a retired chief nursing officer. Jeff and Pat have 2 daughters, Dr. Katrina Willie Musoma, who's a pediatrician, and Ursula Willie, who's an attorney, and 2 grandchildren. Jeff is all about serving and adding value to people. People are his business. Audience, help me welcome again to the show, Professor Jeff Willie.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Professor Jeff Willie.
Man, oh man, thank you so much.
Yes, amazing biography, amazing experiences, and I know that this show is limited to an hour. I might have to bring you back in to share the audience the great experiences and educational background that you have to offer so many people. So we're going to get started right now, and we start off with a quote from United States General Colin Powell. He stated that there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So, Professor Willie, what is your story?
What if I just told you failure leads to success? Difficult times, if you're willing to get up, leads to success. And then once you become successful, the focus of that is to focus on being significant. My story is very simple. Thank you, Principal Gordon. Thank you for allowing me to be able to show, and thank you for allowing me to share a few things about me, some fun facts, some crazy facts. But my story is fairly simple in the essence that I grew up in the rural East Texas in a time where the community was slightly divided based on the racial divide or the cultural divide or the demographic divide, and that was part of it, the divisiveness. And somehow I took that divisiveness, that wall that I grew up with, and turned it into a bridge of bringing people together because everything around me said, no, you can't, you can't, you can't, you're never going to amount to nothing. All those different environmental challenges, matter of fact, not only the environmental challenges, but also the verbal challenges and the emotional challenges, all said no. Grew up extremely poor. When I say extremely poor, according to American standards, but I have traveled the world and I realized that I wasn't poor because I did have a roof over my head. I had two parents in the home. I had plenty of food to eat, even though it's not McDonald's and Burger King and Pizza Hut, but it was vegetables that we grew. It was hogs that we raised. It was squirrels that we hunted and killed, and all the above. It was chickens that we raised, and I think that's pretty healthy food, to be honest with you. So I definitely grew up with a healthy diet instead of the fast food diet that some of my peers was exposed to. But fast food was not part of our conversation, not part of our environment back then anyway in the country in the 50s and 60s and the 70s. That was not that. And so growing up, you mentioned a book because of a book called In Her Good Life magazine. I wrote an article about that and talks about how poverty produced a platform. And me being number 10 of 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls, my father could not read and write. My mother went to the third grade. And so education was not part of our culture. Education was not part of our heritage. It was grow up, get a job, and do what you need to do and stay in the community. And being number 10 and the last son, but being 10 out of the 12 children, somehow I got stamped slightly different. Even though education was not promoted, it was not. It was just something that you do, but it was not promoted to an advanced level. And so the expectation was to get out of high school, get married, have kids, go to work, yada yada yada, all the above. That was the message that our environment embodied, and that was a message that basically came from home as well. The word college was never part of the dialogue, and so I struggled in high school because of that, and because once you become a track star, which I was, and then we just did what we need to do. We just went to school to be there. But I had a major transformation later on in life because it's almost like the Lord was saying, I am going to label this boy differently. I'm going to plant something in him. In spite of his history, I want him to carry a powerful message forward. And that message of you can, you can, you can, in spite of, regardless of, you are going to carry a message of hope. You're going to carry a message of inspiration. And education is going to be part of that platform because it leads to opportunity. And the education doesn't develop your character, but it does develop a character of commitment towards something stronger and better, and you working towards something that's successful because you have to be committed and dedicated to that type of platform to achieve a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or whatever, or just what I call developing yourself, developing the brain, because you don't need a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or PhD to be educated. Sometimes those platforms get in the way of your education. And so you got to make sure you're focusing on personal growth and development. And that became our platform. That became our legacy. That became our literacy piece of that. The article was our poverty before a platform in regards to literacy. And with that being said, that moved me to an idea that my daughters would be successful, will be educated. This is that opening door. We're not going to be part of that historical of lack of education, because education opens up opportunities and open up doors. So that was part of my story and why I am today. And the military helped facilitate that. Being around like-minded people, being around the United States Air Force, where education is part of the culture. Character was part of the culture. Self-worth was part of the culture, because I came from an environment where self-worth was not promoted. I was told I was stupid and never going to amount to nothing, and my environment promoted that. And so I had to move myself from that environment. And it took some transition to transition, even though I transitioned from the place physically, but it took a while to transition from the place mentally. And so that took the time to do that. And then guess what? Because of those formidable years, it's still a growth in process. It's still a work in process to keep working hard to transform yourself mentally and psychologically from the ills of the past. You have to work on that on a daily basis. When those negative thoughts surface, you have to replace it with a positive thoughts, because those formative years have been implanted and they don't go away. You just have to replace them and then modify those thoughts to something positive. And so I have the ability to take those negatives and turn them into positive, not for just for the world, but also for myself. And once I develop them within myself, then I can share them with the world. And so that's the gist of my story. The military for 25 plus years. I was started out as a police officer in the Air Force, not knowing that's what I wanted to do, with the impact it had on my life. And it really, really transformed my thinking to serve others. To serve others, because as a police officer in the Air Force, police officer in the civilian world, you have to have a mindset of serving others. And that helped me significantly. And then got around people that was pursuing education, and that encouraged me. My wife was pursuing her education, that was encouraging me. And we wanted to be models in front of our children. We didn't want to be one of those parents that do and we're not doing. I wanted to be a parent that I'm doing and you can do. And that what we did, we modeled education in front of our children. And so the only question that came up was, where are you going to college? Never about if you're going to college. That was not part of the conversation. Is where are you going? And how can I support you to get there? Because your parents are modeling that expectations. And so we are not about, you've heard this analogy, I much rather see a sermon and then to hear a sermon. And so we became to see for the environment and to see for our children. And we modeled that. So the expectation was, we're going to support you wherever you decide to go to college. And that became the platform. So literacy right now is my platform because of that, because of coming out of illiteracy to a platform of literacy. And we know the value of education and how it transforms our people's lives. It gives them hope. So hope I went too long on that introduction, but that's where I am right now.
No, you did not go too long, and a lot came out of that, and I appreciate. I just love these conversations every week, and I love what you have shared in terms of a portion, not everything of your story. And what I gather there is about there's a lot of messages that you put out there in your introduction about the fact that you can, and it's for everyone that is listening to the broadcast. Whatever you desire, whatever you dream of, you can do it. And Professor Willie is sharing the message of hope, and also about commitment to whatever you're working towards, and understanding also he's talking about value. Everyone has value, and you have to understand that. But also he talks about modeling for his family, modeling for others, the school environments that he is associated with, and then also the community. And I just love the fact that your platform is around literacy, which is so much needed in all of our schools. As you see a lot of the research around literacy in terms of the fact that when our students are not reading on grade level by grade level 3, there are prisons and jail cells that are being formed based on those statistics. And we all have to come together to improve the literacy of our young students. And also when those that are not reaching those benchmarks at grade level 3, what are we doing now? How are we going to turn the system and disrupt the system? And that's what we all have to work towards. So I'm excited about your experiences, your education, and also the work that you're doing at Spirit Time. So let's just continue this conversation. Talk about what wakes you up in the morning. What excites you?
Well, I can tell you that's just getting up early and my focus, even before I go to bed, is who am I going to help smile tomorrow? You asking for that to be inserted into your mind. You're seeking that. Who am I going to come in contact with tomorrow? And how can I impact their life in a positive way? I look forward opportunities to get out because of COVID-19 has kept us enclosed for a while. I understand that. So we have limited exposure or limited opportunities, whatever you choose to do. But I do make it a significant habit of when I'm out in the public, especially when I'm making a trip to the grocery store and there's a bagger or a cashier wherever at the restaurant that's checking me out, ringing my product out. I try to be intentional is even if I'm wearing the mask, I try to smile with my eyes and smile, let them know I'm smiling. And if I see a name tag, I recognize them by name. People feel good when someone called their name, when someone addressed them by their name, no matter what type of day they may be having. The focus is on being positive and valuing that person. Hey, Paul. And if I can't pronounce their name because of wherever part of the world they're from, and I said, boy, how do you pronounce your name? I would love to pronounce your name. And then they pronounce their name and they feel good by pronouncing their name. And then I'll repeat their name to them. And I say, man, it's great to see you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being out here. So always being grateful for the opportunity to add value to people's lives, no matter where they are, no matter if they're at the gas station. We don't have this full service gas stations anymore, where some people go up and pay for their gas in cash, but primarily at the grocery store, at the laundry, those type of places. I'm finding myself just adding value to that. I'm picking up food at the restaurant to go. Maybe I'm having food at the restaurant and the wait staff is waiting on me. I'm intentional about asking them their name. And sometimes the wait staff don't have their name. And I just ask, hey, what is your name? And they feel honored that I would take the time to ask them their name. And then as they continue bringing service in my table, and thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, John. I'll have a great day. And that's a moment of feeling good about myself, but more importantly, helping someone else feel good about themselves, that the service is value. Not only are the service value, but they feel valuable that we take time to do that. And guess what happens with that? They feel honored to serve your table or to serve you. And they're always asking, how else can I serve you? What else do you need? And then other part of that, you find yourself, because you shifted their paradigm just for that moment, because you never know what they may be going through. You never know. And so you shifted that paradigm for that moment. And then when they bring you the bill and you obviously tip them very accordingly, you tip them well. And that just makes their day. And I feel so good to have the opportunity, because I could even be having a bad experience before I walk into the restaurant and I see their name and I call them by their name. That shifts my thinking and my paradigm as well. So we all walk away embracing each other, and they'll say, well, have a great day and have a great day. And I say, have a great day and have a great week and be blessed. And it's good to see you. Hope to see you again. So I enjoy that. That really makes me feel good.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And for the audience, I want to put that challenge out there. What Professor Willie is doing and continues to do. He's not only adding value to others, but he's also valuing people. Okay, that everyone has value. And just based on what he said, I know I have done it, and especially in the restaurant environment. And just if you have not done it, I'm just going to encourage members of the audience to go and do it and be consistent about it. You'll see exactly how it is going to change the other person's life that you are adding value to and valuing, but also how it feels for you as well. And that's what this society and this world needs more of: people adding value to each other, and also everyone looking at others with value. And that's going to be important for us to continuously grow and improve as a society. So I want to ask you, Professor Willie, I know that you're well studied and learn and read a lot and all about literacy. What is a book you are reading now or have read recently, and how is that book impacting your life and your work?
Great question. Obviously, there's several books that I've read and had master and did masterminds and group studies with. And as I'm reading this content, a context is also adding value to me. I don't do anything unless it connects with my values. And because I cannot be true, transparent as I'm adding value to you. One of the books I just recently reading right now is called "What Are You For" by Jeff Henderson. For those don't know, maybe don't know, Jeff Henderson's calls "What Are You For?" and just Google Jeff Henderson and Google that title, and it talks about Jeff Henderson as being a marketing specialist. Jeff is a former pastor. Of course, he has a wonderful name, first name Jeff, of course, so we obviously connected there. And Jeff is a former pastor, and obviously he's a leader. But he also is a marketing expert. He's worked for the Atlanta Braves. He's worked for Chick-fil-A, very familiar with the Kathy family on the Chick-fil-A. But the book talks about becoming the best version of yourself. What do you stand for? What are you for? From a business perspective, I think this analogy would maybe connect even easier. What do people say about your business? Not what you say about your business. Because if I'm talking about my business, it's the best business on the face of the earth. That's great. They're hearing it from you. But what do other people say? What does those Google reviews say about your business? What does those customers say about your business? What are those referrals saying about your business? Are they referring you? Now, that's from a business analogy. Let's take it from a life analogy, me becoming the best version of Jeff Willie. What do I stand for? When people hear the name Jeff Willie, what do they say? Is he a man of character? Is he a man of integrity? Is he a person that can be trusted? Is he a person that's on time? Is he a hard worker? Is he dedicated? What is his voice? What is he talks about? And so it is a great book for life. There's a lot of other books out there. As a Man Thinketh, The Think and Grow Rich, The 15th Invaluable Laws of Growth, No Limit, The Real Expectations, all those different content out there. But this one as well. And so this is the most recent one. And all those others I mentioned before has really transformed. And for me to add value, to No Limits by John Maxwell. What are your capacity? Absolutely. The 21 irrefutable laws. But what are you for? That is a platform, a book for life. What is your voice? I host a speakers club every Tuesday night, teaching folks how to develop their speaking voice and how to connect with the audience. And out of that is extremely transformational, because what's happening with that principal court is that the men and women that's in the speakers club is finding their voice, and they're identifying what are they for. What do you stand for? Are you a motivator? Are you a teacher? Are you inspire? Are you a director when people talk about you? So it is a great book for life, even though it's set primarily for businesses, but it's that what are you for? It is a phenomenal book for life. And Jeff Henderson is now part of the John Maxwell umbrella of business strategists and marketing strategists in helping us to become the best version of ourselves. Part of my motto is serving and adding value to people. People are my business. But in that umbrella is I'm helping us to become the best version of ourselves. There's a saying out there, and don't quote me, I can't really pay, I don't know who said it, but I looked at a video, and you may have seen the video, and the young man said, it's not for us to be the best in the world, it's to be the best for the world. And that is being the best version of you, being the best for the world.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting the work of Jeff Henderson and the book For, and just like you have already encouraged everyone through your statement there, that is as a good text to definitely read, to be reflective on, and also to make those adjustments in terms of being the best you for yourself as well as for your business. And I just want to continue along this line around literacy and reading and also personal growth. I just want to talk about mentorship. I want to know and I know the answer that you do have mentors and also coaches, and just want you just to open up the floor for you just to be able to share about your experiences with mentorship, and also maybe there's something that a mentor has shared with you that has definitely impacted your life and your work that you're doing.
Great question. Thanks for asking that. We cannot take this personal growth, professional growth journey by ourselves. You cannot. You walk alone, you stay alone. You never grow unless you have someone to look up to. Like your statement earlier at the introduction, you got to have someone to look up to. There's got to be a model that you aspire to be like, and that model's got to model your values, model the character and the person that you want to be. And I tell you, I go back to my first mentor and my first one, and that's, I have to say it. I have to say it. That's got to be daddy. That's got to be my father. Let me just clean it up a little bit. It's got to be my father. Quiet spirited man, very quiet, didn't speak a lot, but he modeled things in front of me. As I stated earlier, I much rather see a sermon than to hear a sermon. And so my father was the visual, the way he conducted himself, the way he connected with people, the way he connected with kids. And I now wonder why I became an educator. Knowing that my father never could read and write, but he was the most educated man in my life, especially when it comes to emotional intelligence. He was just very a wise person. So when he spoke, little boy listened, because my dad's not going to speak a lot. So little boy listened. So you got to have that mentor. That was the first model. But obviously, I know you want to talk about the transfer of the mentors that you have in your adult life as you grow up. And I had quite a few of those in the military that laid a foundation for me, that I aspired to be that person. So I would sit and ask questions and just model what they would do, because they modeled my character, they modeled my value system, and they modeled the things that I wanted, what I aspired to be. Watching those guys getting those education, taking care of their family, becoming great fathers, becoming great husbands, and they modeled that. So I'm very honored to have some of those names that was in my life. Since I've been part of this John Maxwell journey, which is mentorship, it carries a whole lot of weight, because we talk about that all the time. You cannot do this alone. You need someone to be a mentor and or a coach aspect of that. And one of the person that stands out for me right now, besides Cedric LaFleur, who's I've used him quite a bit as a mentor, as a guide, as a guiding post, and also as a coach. But Dr. Sam Fitzroy, he's a senior pastor of a church here in Plano, Texas. He has been my mentor for quite a few years as a model of the expectations and the desire. He's several years older than I am. He's about 8 years older than I am, but his life has modeled always growing. He's 72, maybe 73 now, and he's still growing. He's still teaching. He's still growing. He ended up getting his PhD when he was 70 years of age. He modeled that, and he's a former Army veteran, and the things he has done in his life has always been an aspiration for me to follow that as well. But if you look at Cedric LaFleur as a coach, as a mentor, he's younger, but he has a skill set. He has an ability. He has a business acumen. He has a creativity. That's some of those things that I desire to be. So I even take that as a sense of mentoring and modeling the expectations. And I tell people, as I'm their life coach or their business coach or their leadership coach, always ask that person that's coaching you who are or who is, and most times it could be more than one, their coach. Because as a mentor, as a coach, you must model the expectation. You must be teachable and you must be coachable. And you got to have a sense of authenticity and also transparent, because you expect that of your coaching clients or your mentees, and you model that. Yes, I have a coach, I have a mentor, and I'm still growing. We are on this journey together. And so when you have a coaching client or you have a mentee, you're not the authority, you're the partner. You in this journey together, you in this walk together. I learn from you, we learn from each other. I might been where you're trying to go, but even as your coach, I may not have been where you're trying to go, but I have a skill set of asking questions. because the answer to the question lies within. And my responsibility as your coach is to help extract that, and then you discover it. And once you discover it, you tend to be accountable to your discovery. You tend to hold yourself accountable. Oh, and you get excited. I found the answer. Now I must take action towards that answer. Then it becomes actionable. It becomes a goal. And that's the focus of that coaching and mentor relationship, or that coaching and that client relationship. And so as I had coaches and had mentors in my life, they learned to ask me questions and allowed me to discover. That self-discovery is so powerful, because if you tell me how to think, I'm tend not to do it, because you still own responsibility for what you're telling me. But if I discover how to think, and then discover my answer and discover my path, and then I own the accountability to reach those goals.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing some insight around coaching and mentoring, and also sharing with the audience how coaching and mentoring has impacted your life and also your career. So let's talk about your work, and especially in terms about literacy and writing, and you're a contributing author on several projects. Let's first start off about your work with Good Life Family Magazine. So let's share with the audience a little bit about the magazine, and also how you guys started with being a contributing author.
It is a Good Life Family Magazine, proud to embrace the entire family, primarily through the community, charitable service, serving the community. And I met the editor and the owner at a networking meeting through the Texas Legends. Texas Legends is a minor league basketball team of the Dallas Mavericks. And somehow we just connected. For some reason, you get up and socialize and you smile. This has been several years ago, so we can actually show our teeth. Can't show our teeth now, especially in the public, because we masked up. And we just connected, and we shared contact information. I shared a quick snippet about my story because she asked a question, and she got excited. I could see her nonverbals was shifting, and not sure exactly what was happening, but eventually she got in touch with me and asked me would I write an article about part of my history, part of my background, and I focus it on how poverty impact the future. Poverty to change the water. Now I'm trying to recall the name of the article, but the focus was based on my illiteracy to literacy, and the impact of that, how my background formulated a tenacity to make a difference and allow literacy to be the platform. And that article is still out there today. And I thank you for sharing it on the screen so folks can go and look at the Good Life Family Magazine. The author and the editor of the magazine is Cheryl Pignan out of Plano, Texas. And she have attended several workshops of mine. She and I have collaborated on multiple projects because I've written several articles for that magazine. The power of words, life and death are in the words. What you speak into people's lives and what you speak into your own minds, those words will eventually become life. They become your habits. And so you have to speak optimistic and high expectations and everything for yourself and also for others. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So it can be. You speak it into life. You walk it out into life. And so I always challenge parents to be careful what you're saying. Make sure it's words of optimism. When son or daughter is not behaving appropriately, you speak the future behavior. You speak the expectations, not what they are, because their behavior is not a reflection of who they are to become. So you speak to who they are to become and who you desire they are to become. You remind little Johnny when he's not doing what he's supposed to. You remind him that you're going to be a doctor one day. You have to be organized. You have to keep a neat room. You have to be respectful to your clients and your stakeholders, and your patients, or whatever that aspiration that little Johnny have. You speak that. You keep that at the forefront when little Johnny is not behaving appropriately. For educators out there, when little Johnny is not behaving appropriately in the classroom, you have to be to connect with him or her in a positive way. You have to be to do that. You don't speak to the behavior, you speak to the expectations. Because if you speak to the behavior, you're going to get a defensiveness. I'm going to push back. That's kind of our human nature. I am going to push back. So you speak, so you shift that behavior and you shift that thinking by speaking to the expectations in a positive affirmation way. And over time, it may not happen immediately, it may not happen on the spot, but over time, it can, because you're modeling with Johnny or Susan or Sarah the expectation that you have for them. Because I reflect back on that moment when my 8th grade math teacher, Principal Gordon, called me stupid and never going to amount to nothing. He was speaking to his expectations of me. He was. And you don't understand the impact of that, because significantly that impacted me for a long period of time. Because the other part of that statement, he said, and you boys are stupid and you're never going to amount to nothing, and do not take algebra in the 9th grade. And so he basically saying that I was stupid, never going to amount to nothing, and then math was not something that I could do, saying I can't do it. And then a couple of years later, I'm with my 10th grade track coach, Coach Reggie Day, and he shifted that paradigm, saying, Jeff, you can. JW, you can compete in the 400. It was 440 back then, but it's 400 meters now. Everything was yards. And then you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. And so that resonates. I can. And then, and I share this story because the power of that word of my 8th grade math teacher saying that you were stupid and you can't do algebra. And I am now working on my associate's degrees for the Community College of the Air Force. And my last requirement to complete that associate's degree happens to be college algebra. And that word came up right there on my shoulder into my head. You can't do this. But I've always made a commitment that I'm going to model the expectations and I'm going to overcome that somehow. But that word was so powerful. It took me 4 tries to complete that algebra course because I was being frustrated and angry, and I dropped out 3 times. But if you look what I just said though. I fell down 3 times, but I got up 4 times. You get up because you know what the calling is. You know what you've committed to is that you're going to be a model. You're going to overcome those obstacles, and you're going to have those falls. You're going to have those failures. And that algebra became that failure for me. But I remember what I told myself. I'm going to be a model for my children. I am going to overcome this. But that word of failure kept surfacing. You can't. And I fail, and I fail, and I fail. But you fail, you fall down, but you get up. You get up. Because if you keep getting up, 1 class, and then I got my crown, and I got a C in that class, principal. I'll tell you what, man, I celebrated like I had just got awarded $1 million. I was excited. I got that C, and some people celebrate and they see a C as you just got a C. Hey man, you don't know what I went through to get this C. You don't understand. It wasn't the equation on the paper that I was dealing with. It wasn't that mathematical equation that I was dealing with. It was the mind.
Yes.
That held me back. And at that moment, when I got that C, man, I tell you what, you talking about doors that start flying open. It wasn't the physical door, it was a psychological door that started opening up. And that right there was a moment of my life. Out of negative, I can't, into positive, even though I've been knocked down 3 times, but I got up.
Yes.
And that was the focus of that.
Very good. And 2 things I wanted to highlight real quickly for the audience and the educators out there. You said something very important, to speak to the expectations. Okay. And, yes, there is a key part to that, is that we got to have high expectations for all the students that come in front of us, all of the adults. And it goes back to what you're talking about, before, seeing everyone as a 10, valuing everyone and having those high expectations and speaking to that. Because yes, so many times we speak to the behaviors, but we don't speak to the expectations of what we want and what we see in people. So I wanted to emphasize that point. But also, when you talk about how you overcame these challenges, I also hear that you also understood that it wasn't about you, and you wanted to do this, yes, for yourself and your accomplishment, but it's also about that modeling for others. And even right now on this particular afternoon, you're sharing your story, and there's someone out there that is struggling in algebra or another class right now, but Professor Jeff Willie is telling you you can. And I just want to encourage everyone that's in the audience watching this now. Jeff Willie is definitely a testimony to what we all can do. We just have to make sure that we are doing what we have to do in terms of having the right mindset, and we can accomplish everything that is given to us. So I want to continue. There's so much work that you're doing, but I want to continue to talk about the work that you did in terms of the book In Her Boots. It's the sexual assault prevention and recovery strategies. So share with the audience about that work, In Her Boots.
Absolutely. I felt so honored that the primary author, retired Army Major Lisa Bass, we connected at a networking meeting. Here we go, a networking meeting again. And being a veteran, it was a veteran networking meeting, the Veterans Chamber of Commerce in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we connected. I did a presentation, principle on the law of awareness coming out of the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I believe that's the first chapter of the 15th Invaluable Laws of Growth, the law of awareness. You need to know yourself to grow yourself. And I did that presentation, and this is the first time I did that presentation as a professional development for my veterans community. And she happened to be attending. It was virtual. And afterwards, you put your contact information in the chat room so people can reach out to you. And she did. She reached out to me because it resonated with her significantly. It impacted her. And she was writing a book, In Her Boots, Sexual Assault Prevention and Recovery Strategies. And she still was working on chapters. She asked me, do you mind writing a chapter in this book? And I'm thinking, you asking me to write a chapter in this book? And she shared with me how that law of awareness impacted her and the need for her community of military men and women, more or less military women that are being sexually assaulted. And she's already retired, but she spent some time on active duty facilitating workshops for sexual assault victims in the United States Army. And so she asked me to be a contributing writer, a co-author, and I said yes. And along with the other 7 other authors, was primarily 8 authors total. All are ex-military, all are retired except one. All are 5 are officers, 3 colonels, 6 Army colonels, 2 majors, and a couple of and the rest of us are enlisted. I'm a senior master sergeant retired. The other one was sergeant majors retired. All have been associated with Major Lisa Bass. And so we put the content together, and took us a while, and she lined it up, and it has really made a difference, because when I was active duty, sometimes men and women don't know who they are, so they don't find their voice. That 18 to 20-year-old female in the United States military is still trying to find their way. They coming in the military very naive, and there are a lot of senior persons in the military that takes advantage of that because they don't know their voice. They don't know who they are. And so my focus was to help them to know who they are very early, or be aware of who you are. Personal growth and development. Find your voice very early so you can speak up for yourself, because most of those authors in that book, especially the senior officers, in that book, were abused, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and it took them a long time to speak up for themselves. And so we're trying to educate our young men, and primarily our young women, to speak up for yourself very early, because you take an 18-year-old female to enter the armed services, they want to please, they want to satisfy, they want to be accepted. And then you got the older, seasoned military personnel take advantage of that naivety,
Mm.
and they find themselves in a position and compromising who they are. And so we're trying to help them. And part of that is the work. We sent the book, a copy of the book, to the Secretary of Defense, retired General Lloyd Austin. So that book is in the Pentagon. And we also, I communicated with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, senior enlisted advisor, who's an Air Force Chief Master Sergeant. I communicate with him to make sure that General Austin, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, has access to that book. And our focus is, and our hope and desire is, we want that book all over the Department of Defense, but not just the Department of Defense, but this sexual assault and harassment is also prevalent in our civilian companies as well. It's all over the place. And I'm sure you heard of the recent news of the governor of New York, which is next door to you. And so that happened just recently. But it was an ongoing situation in the discovery that obviously, end of the day, Governor Cuomo resigned from his position as governor of the state of New York. And it stems around what's going on in this book: sexual assault, sexual harassment, taking advantage of. Now, I don't know all the law. I'm not the lawyer. My daughter is a lawyer, but I'm just looking at the news and hearing the news and reading the article. But at the end of the day, Governor Cuomo resigned because of that particular topic in this book. And we have had military officers have lost their command because of this particular topic in this book. And so we're trying to set a platform to educate folks, practical platform for a continual education for our military leaders, men and women, to understand the importance of this book, the impact of, you need to read the book, Sexual Assault Prevention and Recovery Strategies. You know, it said prevention, not after the fact. Okay, we want to prevent, but you got to be educated to prevent. And then after the fact, recovery strategies to help folks that have been victimized with sexual assault. And that's why I'm so passionate about this book. And that's why I spent some time with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, senior enlisted leader, talking about this book and sharing it with others.
Very good. Thank you, Professor Willie. So again, the title of the book is In Her Boots: Sexual Assault Prevention and Recovery Strategies. And what I have created is a link. If you go to bit.ly/her boots prevention, that will lead you to the Amazon link where you can order your copy of this great resource to be able to impact our communities where this is happening. And I just want to encourage everyone to get their copy today. And I failed to mention, as Professor Willie was talking about his work with the Good Life Family Magazine, on the screen, you do see the website for the magazine. Again, is Good Life Family mag.com, where you can see all the great articles that all the writers are putting out to support healthy family lives. So thank you, Professor Willie, for being a contributing author for not only the magazine, but also for the book In Her Boots: Sexual Assault Prevention and Recovery Strategies. So I want to give you time to talk about your work. And I put on the web on the screen right now, where you can reach out to Professor Jeff Willie and see all the amazing things that he's doing in the community, in schools, at www.jeffwillie.com. So Jeff, I'm just going to open the floor. Share with the audience about your company and the work that you're doing.
Thanks. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about Jeff Willie Leadership. That's the focus of that of my company. It's just Jeff Willie Leadership. Keep it simple. Jeff at jeffwillie.com. And my focus is serving and adding value to people. People are my business. It's helping us to become the best version of ourselves. And that is through leadership. That is through communication. That is through behavior assessments that I have. That is through impact reports, assessing our youth, assessing our adults, assessing our leaders, assessing our sales leaders, assessing our communication, because everything rises and falls on leadership. That is a quote course by Dr. John C. Maxwell. But Jeff Willie Leadership is helping us being the best version of ourselves, and that is through motivational speaking. That's helping you find your voice through a Maxwell Speakers Club or just a Speakers Club in general, and through communication, through working with our youth. I'm heading to Burleson, Texas next week to work with our youth department on to helping them find their voice and do engaging in productive meeting. I was in University of Mary Hardin Baylor a couple of weeks ago, working with the Gatesville Independent Schools District and the staff on how to value each other, how to be an effective listener, how to be extremely positive. And I talked about the youth leadership program. I was in Terrell Independent School District last week, working with the superintendents on the mentoring program, helping our youth and connect the dots because we have lost what I call an academic piece coming out through the pandemic and helping them reconnect through social and emotional learning. And that's part of what Jeff Willie Leadership does. It's helping us be the best version of ourselves through leadership workshop. And I can tell you two of my primary target audience, I work with everyone because I've done sales workshops with automobile industries. I've done leadership games with the transportation industry. But I can tell you, I'm very passionate about working with school leaders because of my environment growing up in schools, and that we need our leaders feeding our teachers. And leaders need to be feeding our teachers, because if you don't feed the teachers, they will eat the kids. And so that's not my quote, but that is, I don't even know the author. I know the author. I even have the book right now. Just the author just leaving my mind. So I'm never going to say it's Jeff Willie's. I'll say it's unknown for right now. But the essence of that you got to embody leadership, and leadership is about serving those educators. And sometimes most of our educators and most of our leaders are not just serving themselves and not serving their educators and not serving their constituency and not serving their colleagues and their stakeholders. And the teachers with that as well, teacher workshops, seeing yourself as a leader, leadership, you have to lead yourself. So I'm talking to educators, the classroom educators or the classroom leaders, not a classroom manager, but as a classroom leader, you're influencing others. And so make sure you're leading yourself well and being transparent. So I embody all of that in Jeff Willie Leadership. I work with those school administrators at the staff level, at the district level, to make sure that they're feeding those principals what they need and focusing on developing themselves. And so what I've done with that, Principal Jordan, I've taken the acronym PD and take that same acronym PD from professional development is personal development. And grow yourself. And as you link with growing yourself, that's going to enhance your professional growth as well. It can't work without the other. But sometimes we put the PD in front of the PD. We put the professional development in front of the personal development, and we get it backwards. And then our personal growth suffers because we're focusing on dotting the I and crossing the T on a product, and we fail to dot the I and cross the T on ourselves. And that suffers significantly because we're so busy chasing that PD. And I need to work on my PD, and that my PD will enhance the organizational PD. And I'm hoping that my leaders out there and my church leaders and my school leaders and my business leaders help those people grow. If you serve them well and add value to themselves and their personal growth, I promise you, it's going to impact the organization, loyalty, retention, creativity, diversity, inclusiveness, all those things going to increase significantly because organization, you invested in me and I'm going to return. I'm going to invest in you as my return to the organization.
Well, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Again, the website is www.jeffwillie.com. And Professor Jeff Willie, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm glad that you agreed to come on to the show and share your story, share all the wisdom and the educational experiences. And I just love how you made that distinction around professional development and turned it to that personal development. We do have to pour into ourselves so we can be the best for others and those that we are serving. So I thank you for sharing that with the audience and being on the show this afternoon. And for everyone in the audience, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to another broadcast of the Principal's Office. to hearing from a great leader who is making a significant impact in education. And I just want to invite everyone to tune in next Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of the Principal's Office, when we'll have another great guest on. And we just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in today. And I want everyone to have a wonderful, wonderful week. Good afternoon, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.